Welcome to this latest edition of the Real Deal podcast. I'm your host, the Real Gerald Quinn, recording this on a Tuesday as we are now headed towards the second half of the NBA season. We're past the second half as far as games played, but now as we head towards March, we seemingly will be in the stretch run of the NBA season. A lot to get to from that standpoint, and that's where we'll begin with the NBA All Star Game. Man, I had a question. Was it a success? Was it considered? Do you consider it to be a success? Did I consider it to be a success? If I were to grade the All Star Game and weekend, probably would I give it a solid B to B plus. The game itself, I would say A minus. Um, the ratings for the All Star game were up big time. The highest ratings that they've had in 15 years. Going back, that's of course that was the last time Kobe Bryant won his last of four record All Star MVP awards. That back in 2011 when the game also was held in Los Angeles at the then Staples Center. So from that standpoint, you can call it a success. The new format, out of the four mini games that they had, the four 12-minute games they had, three were highly competitive. The last one, not so much, but we know that the old heads were completely out of gas and got completely embarrassed by the youngins, Anthony Edwards and Jalen Johnson and guys like that, which kind of made sense. Um, so from that standpoint, I think that you have to consider it to be a success. Now, when we talk about All Star Weekend, the Friday stuff again, I don't get into the Friday stuff. I could care less. The Rising Stars game, didn't watch it. Just did had no interest in it. Had no interest in the celebrity game whatsoever. So I don't care about All Star Friday night. It just means that I just don't just could care less. I just don't. For me, it just does nothing for me. The dunk contest needs to go, and I don't understand why the NBA wants to continue to hang on to the dunk contest. It just listen. Its time has passed. It's had its best days. Um, you got a situation where you have these no name players participating, or where you had to get a guy out the G League, Matt McClung, who won it twice, and now there was a bunch of hating on him. He actually did some great dunks, but now there was hating on people were hating on him because he's not an official NBA player. So that kind of discouraged him from coming back for a possible three-peat. Um, Look, if it's not going to be done, if you're not going to have if you're not going to have all-star caliber players, let alone the best players participate in it, then it just doesn't matter. Because that's what the players are telling you. The players telling you by not having all-star caliber players or very good to all-star to great players participate in the dunk contest. The players are telling you that we just don't care about this shit. Like the three-point contest by far is the best skills event by far. Like because you will have a guy like Steph Curry, Dame Lillard, who won it this year. You will have the very best shooters, and some of those shooters, top shooters, have been All Star to Hall of Fame caliber players. Caliber players that we've seen. We've seen a Ray Allen be in it before he retired. We've seen guys like Reggie Miller and what have you before they retired participate in it. Steph Curry won his last one in 2021. Will probably could be in it next year. As talked about, hasn't committed to it, but Dame Lillard shared a text with Steph Curry, and who knows? He's trying to get Steph. You might see Steph Curry and possibly Clay. We've seen Klay Thompson be in it, so that to me should be the headline as far as the skills competition. That to me is the one that you build around. You don't need the dunk contest. I'm sorry, you don't need the dunk contest. And as far as the skills, as far as the skills, as far as the skills competition, I don't need to see Drewski or celebrities participating or influencers in it. I don't care about influencers being a part of All Star Weekend. I generally don't give a shit. We see enough of influencers on YouTube, on Instagram, on social media in general. They're all over. Trust me, and kudos to them. Hats off for them. Hats off to them. Drewski is a genius at what he does as far as creating characters and creating content. He really is. Whether you rock with his content or not, he's an absolute genius when it comes to content creation. But I don't need to see Drewski at All Star Weekend participating in All Star Weekend in terms of being a part of the skills competition. I just don't. It does that made no sense to me whatsoever. So the All Star Saturday, I thought was the weak, but the All Star Saturday was the weakest part of it. I, to be perfectly honest with you, you could move the rising you could move the the Rising Stars game to Saturday and get rid and get replace it. Have the Rising have the game and then have the game and then the 3-point contest in the same day if you want to. If you're worried about replacing it from a time standpoint, we don't need the All Star the Friday stuff for the All Star game. We don't, and I think the NBA tries the NBA sometimes tries too hard to keep up with every single trend on social media and what's going on in terms of the digital space to where sometimes they can outthink themselves instead of keeping it simple. Um, the Rising Stars game I heard was a great game. You had some obviously, and that was without Cooper Flag, that you had some great action from that standpoint. Fine, move that to Saturday. Move that to Saturday and move that to Saturday. You could do a 3-point contest and then a Rising Stars game. Period. Point blank. So that that could be perfect. And then of course Sunday, the game will take care of itself. As far as the game went goes, listen, I don't need. I think that we could do U.S. versus the world um without the round robin. I think that the format we can get back to a regular game. If we're gonna have Wembanyama take it as serious as he took it, then I think that next year we can actually get back to just having two teams, the U.S. versus the world, and keep it and keep it from there. I don't think we need to have three teams and four games. Because Wembanyama did something very important. He established that, hey, if you don't play hard, I'm going to embarrass you. And everybody else picked up from that energy. I think it was very important. It's extremely important for the NBA to promote its young players and its young superstars. I really think that, and I've been preaching this for the past year or two, that really need to move past the LeBron, Curry, Durant era in the worst way. Um, you had Curry was injured. I thought that you had some guys that were missing that actually would have added some juice to the game. No SGA, no Giannis, so that would have been two people that you could have added to the world team to balance it out even more. Um, and again, no Jason Tatum, no Stephen Curry. So there were some guys that were missing that you would be able to balance it off more. And then there's some star players there are some guys that are coming that are going to be all stars. Cooper Cup, I think Cooper Cup next year probably will be an all star. You have guys like Knipple could possibly be an all star next year, possibly. Etchcom, two of those three guys could possibly be all stars. So it is time for the NBA to promote your young players in the worst way. It is. I was so happy that what transpired in the All Star game happened with the result of the young guys kicking the ass of the OGs. Even though we know the OG, the old heads had ran 3 straight games. They had no legs whatsoever. But regardless of that, it just only made sense that the young talent, that the young guys in the league were, stood up, and shined during this All Star weekend, during this All Star Sunday. Victor Wembanyama, Anthony Edwards, Now again, Kawhi had the best performance because that third game where he scores 31 points in 12 minutes was spectacular, and he had the best performance per se. But as far as from an energy standpoint, it was about Wembanyama, it was about Anthony Edwards, period, point blank. And those are the guys that you need to be promoting more so than anything moving forward. And they got like you got to let go eventually. You can't wait until a LeBron or KD or Stephen Curry retires to say here, let's turn it over to the young players. You have young guys. SGA is a champion. You have Anthony Edwards has been in the playoffs the last 4 years of his career, two Western Conference Finals. So you have some young players that are playing in meaningful games. Victor Wembanyama will be an MVP candidate this year if he stays within the 60 if he plays at least the 65 game if he crosses the 65 game threshold and doesn't and hopefully he'll be defensive player of the year, and he will be a top 5 MVP candidate and has an outside chance of winning it. To be honest with you, be perfectly honest with you. So it's not like you don't have the talent to do so to promote these guys. But I think the NBA, again, I've said this before. I think the NBA somewhat is afraid to really go all in on the European players. I think part of it is they don't completely trust that the audience will be bought will buy in to all the European players, and I think part of it they don't want to piss off their American stars. And I'm not talking about pissing off LeBron, KD, and Curry. I mean pissing off like the likes of Anthony Edwards, Jason Tatum's, those guys of that, even to a lesser extent Cooper Cup. So I think they're running. I think they're trying to do a balancing act from that standpoint. But the best players right now are clearly the European players. We all know that the last 7 MVPs have been European players, and that's just the way it is right now. So overall, I would call the All Star Weekend a success. I don't I will it will never it will never be the way it once was. That day is gone. Where it was an event where it was you had to watch from start to finish from Saturday through Sunday. Um, but hopefully with this game with Victor Wembanyama basically setting the tone, that guy setting the tone for the entire game can be something that could be a carryover for years and years to come. And you can get a Chet versus Wembanyama type deal with the U.S. versus the world. You can get Wembanyama versus SGA. You can get an Anthony Edwards versus SGA, and that's where the NBA needs to go. Um, Direction that the NBA needs to go in as far as promoting its players, as far as promoting its younger players, and move away from the frankly move away from the millennials, the generation past. I think there's nothing wrong with that. Durant, LeBron, and Durant, LeBron, and Stephen Curry had their time. They're still excellent players, but the league, you got to have a succession plan. In anything, any corporation, any aspect of life, there has to be a successful succession plan moving forward. Um, I want to get back. I want to get on tanking because that was a major conversation this week leading up to the All Star Weekend. Was the state of tanking? Utah, Indiana, of course, both were fined. Were fined by the NBA for sitting out players, for sitting out healthy players, um, and for basically being just outright saying without not even trying to hide the fact that they're tanking. Like Utah is sitting out players who are clearly healthy, and in Laurie marketing and guys, young players at that. Some young players. So this is where we're at in the NBA. The NBA. This is where we're at in the NBA, especially this particular draft class which is considered to be have 2 or 3 generational talents, 4 potential number 1 picks in this draft. So teams are trying their best to finish somewhere between 1 and 8, maybe even 1 and 10, to possibly get a top five draft pick. So I've heard a lot of things, heard a lot of tweaks, a lot of possible solutions, abolishing the draft. Here's one thing that I have not heard, and I thought about this a couple of days ago about how I would not so much get rid of tanking, but really have teams motivated not to go all out in terms of tanking. And what I would do is, of course, the top 12 teams that make the playoffs, the top six seeds in each conference, those teams are eliminated, right? So those teams are not eligible for lottery picks. If you're a top, if you are a top, if you are a top six, if you are a top six seed in your respective conference. So those teams are eliminated. That leaves that leaves 18 teams for 14 lottery spots. So based off last year's standings, right? You would have had the teams that would the way I would do it is I would go by best record of nine of those nine once you get past those top 12 teams. That means the teams that don't make the playoffs as well as the teams that are in the play-in. So last year, based off the record, based off those records from last year, those teams would have been Memphis would have had the number one pick. Golden State would have had the number two pick. Orlando would have had the number three pick. Sacramento would have had the number four pick. Atlanta would have had the number five pick. Dallas would have had the number six pick. Chicago would have had the number seven pick. Phoenix would have had the number eight pick. Portland would have had the number nine. San Antonio number 10. Toronto 11. Brooklyn 12. Philadelphia 13. And New Orleans 14. And New Orleans 14. Who that would have eliminated? That would have eliminated Charlotte, Washington. Um, who else here? That would have eliminated Charlotte, Washington, and Utah would have been eliminated. So I would have eliminated the three teams in with the worst records in the league. You don't get penalized. You don't get rewarded for having the worst record in the league. Matter of fact, I'm rewarding winning. Remember, you can't go all out and remember some of those teams last year that I just mentioned finished uh Golden State at the top, finished 48 finished 48 and 34. Memphis finished 48 and 34. Atlanta. So I'm rewarding winning. You're rewarding with this, you're rewarding winning with this format. Okay. And if one of those teams, if another team owns your pick, then so be it. Like this year, Oklahoma City owns will own Utah pick if it finishes outside the top eight. Okay, that does I would not change that from that standpoint. That would not change. But I'm not rewarding you for just going all out and just trying to lose every single game. Every single game. We're not doing that. So I'm rewarding winning. If you don't listen, if you naturally suck and your team just is horribly ran and you just are bad or horribly ran, then so be it. But I'm not going to go out there and reward you losing every single game. And by the way, the NBA is allowed to enforce these vehemently with teams that are vehemently trying to tank. Like if you're sitting players, hey, I can fine you. Or if it gets too bad, if you have more than one infraction, like if Utah did what they did again, hey, I'll take a second round pick. I'll just take a second round pick, and if it happens three times, I'll take a first round pick. So the NBA can actually enforce this anti-tanking rules that they already have set up. They're allowed to do that. But again, I'm rewarding in essence, the best of the worst, the best of the worst teams, the best of the teams that don't have top six records within their conference. So if you finish with the best record, if you finish with the best playing record from teams 7 through 10, you get rewarded for that. You get rewarded for being a top, for being the best playing team, for having the best record as a playing team. And how I would do the tiebreaker is I would go by point differential. So I don't care about if you won your division. Um, I don't care about if you won your division and finishing the play in. No, I don't care about that. I don't care about the head to head. I'm going by point differential. So Memphis last year would have had the Golden State gets the advantage over Memphis based off the point differential. They had a well, excuse me, Memphis gets the advantage over Golden State because of the point differential. Their point differential was plus 4.8. Memphis's was the Golden State's was 3.3. So I'm rewarding the tiebreaker would be point differential. Now again, does this completely stop tanking? No, but it severely would discourage the type of tanking that we're seeing right now. You can't have a product where fans don't know who's going to play from game to game your when you have these ridiculous ticket prices, and they're only going up. NBA ticket prices, as salaries escalate, as television contracts escalate, these is the NBA along with the NFL is already doing it, but the NBA is going to price out the regular fan if that's not happening already, to where the average fan will not be able to afford to go to an NBA game. So you already have these prices, these already ridiculous ticket prices, and you're going to tell me on top of it that we're not going to see the best players from game in to game out. That's just you can't have that in the NBA. No other sport has this. Is dealing with this. No other sport remotely is can even hockey that has an 82 game schedule, even baseball. No other sport deals with this. Even baseball that has a 162 game schedule where you can rest guys from time to time. You know, if you have a ticket for a specific series, more than likely there's a 95% chance that your favorite player is going to play. Like Aaron Judge, everyday players are going to play. You know that more than likely going in. And baseball ticket prices are nowhere near as high as NBA, or not as high as NBA ticket prices. And again, you can't have your listen. The NBA was built off their stars. You have to have your star players on the court. You have to. So again, I think this is a major issue for the NBA. It's been an ongoing issue for decades. It's been an ongoing issue now for like the past really 13, 14 years, about 12 to 13 years. It's only gotten worse. I love the NBA. I think there are more talented players now than there's ever been. To be perfectly honest with you, but they got to be on the court. Like you had, to, like you can't. Especially, listen, the thing that the NBA has a problem with not acknowledging and doesn't get held accountable is how many poorly ran franchises there are in the NBA. That's the thing. That is the narrative that I don't see covered enough by the media. How many there are some miserably ran franchises that are constantly in the lottery year in and year out. These teams get rewarded year in and year out. How many times has Sacramento been in the lottery over the last 10 years? Okay. How many times has New Orleans been in the lottery over the last 10 years? How many times it's the same teams year in and year out who are horrible, who are bad, who are poorly run franchises the Wizards. Okay, and again, there's a way to tank without it being like just blatantly just I like without disrespecting your fans. Like Oklahoma City did it. Like Oklahoma City had 2 bad years. They do 2 bad years. They developed. They did 2 bad years. Then they went to a made a. Then they had 2 poor years. Then they went. Then the third year, they were in a play-in, and then the fourth year, they won 57 games and were like a number 1 seed. They did it the right way. They developed their talent. They played hard. They were well coached. I think they now again a couple times down the stretch of various seasons, SGA did go down with an injury, with a mysterious injury, and he would sit out, miss games. They did do that, but they were not. He wasn't a healthy scratch. Like this wasn't. It wasn't as blatant as like, hey, you're gonna be up by 17 points and then not playing the starters the fourth quarter like they did like Utah did last week in a game. Like that just can't happen. Like we're gonna take out our starters, our best players for the entire fourth quarter. You can't have that. That is the horrible look to your sport and to your franchise, not only to your franchise but to your sport. You can't have that. That shit doesn't happen in the NFL. It doesn't happen in the NFL. And again, I understand the differential in games, but you remember you're trying to close the gap. If you're the NBA, you're never going to catch the NFL. You're never going to catch the NFL, but you can. You can. I believe the NBA with so much star potential that they have, with so many great, talented young players, they have the ability to close the gap. I really believe that the NBA has a chance to close the gap. So again, I would, to me, I would reward teams for winning, even if you don't make the playoffs, and even if you're not a top 6 seed. If you finish as the best, um, if you finish as the number 1 um, playing team from a record standpoint, point differential, you get the number 1 pick. You get the number 1 pick, and by the way, if you want to put it in a situation where you can't get the number 1 pick 2 years in a row, let's do that. That's fine. I have no problem with that. If you want to put it in a situation where you can't get a top 5 pick 2 years in a row, cool. We can do that as well. I have no problem with that. So you can't have the number 1 pick. You can't have the number 1 pick more than two. You can't have back to back years of having the number 1 pick. You can't have a top 5 pick multiple back to back years. No top 5 picks back to back years. No lottery picks 3 years in a row. So 3 years in a row, you can't have lottery picks, no matter what, unless you own that a pick from that team. Unless like Oklahoma City owns another team's pick from that standpoint. But you cannot be in the lottery. You cannot be in the lottery 3 straight years. No number 1 pick back to back years. No top 5 picks back to back years. No lottery picks 3 straight years. So again, you have to challenge these teams to hold themselves accountable of being better run franchises. You have a number of franchises. There's so much money in the NBA right now. You have a situation where you have franchises making money who really don't care about winning and losing because they're making so much money. NBA franchises, and you saw it with the Los Angeles Clippers for years before Steve Ballmer, before the whole Donald Sterling shit and that whole fiasco and him being forced out behind his racist statements about Magic Johnson and what have you. He was one of the worst owners in all of sports, but the Clippers made he was notoriously cheap. He had one of more he was one there was one that was one of the worst run organizations in all of sports, but they were allowed to be that way because number one, he was, number one, the owners, uh the NBA works for the owners. And number two, Number two, I mean, he made money on the franchises, so there was no incentive for him to improve the franchise because he was making money off the franchise, making money off being bad. A lot of these NFL owners are making a ton of money despite the fact that their teams are in the tank year in and year out, not making the playoffs. So we're gonna get to a couple. There are a couple things I'm saying for other podcasts, for separate podcasts. Number one, obviously the death of Jesse Jackson. Jesse Jackson, the legendary, iconic civil rights activist, passed away. Former two-time presidential candidate back in '84 and '88, passed away at the age of 84. Um, we're gonna do something on him later on in the week. I was not just going to squeeze him into a podcast. He deserves way more than that. As far as he deserves his own podcast, as far as paying tribute to what he meant to this country, to this world in general. And of course, I will talk about. I'm going to continue the series of Best of '96, and where we're going to talk about Tupac Shakur's legendary record, All Eyes on Me, that of course double album that released excuse me, in 1996. A couple of real thoughts. Um, LeBron James was asked yesterday about Israel, and here's what he said when he was asked. The first part of the question was about Donny Ivy, who was an All Star this year, Portland Trailblazer, who's had a tremendous year, was an All Star this year, playing at an All NBA caliber level. So he talked. That was the first part of the question. Then the second part of the question was about Israel. Here's what he said. I hope I inspire people over there, Israel over there, not only to be great in sports, but to be great in life. Hopefully someday I can make it over there. Adding that he had heard nothing but great things about the country. Now, lately, when he released that statement, uh, there have been a number of people that have been up in arms about him just completely dismissing the genocide that's taking place in Israel. Um, I know Mark Lamar Hill vehemently called him out on his night school broadcast yesterday evening. Y'all know anything about Mark Lamar Hill, how hard he rides for Palestine, and how and again, not Mark is not anti-Israel, he's anti-genocide. And we know the genocide that's going on. We know the tens of thousands of Palestinians that have been killed, women and children, over in Israel. And we know that our country, America, has funded Israel in order to do that. So we know how much Donald Trump has supported Netanyahu and all that good stuff, all that terrible thing, in his old ordeal, and how Netanyahu is taking advantage of Donald Trump. Um, and again, America's been, and this goes beyond Donald Trump. America has been riding with Israel for years. Like I said, every president has ruled for Israel with the exception of Jimmy Carter, and that was part of the reason why Jimmy Carter was only a one-term president. Um, Here's why this statement by LeBron James was so problematic. LeBron James is a global world iconic figure. LeBron James, remember, LeBron James has spoken out on issues domestically in the past. He spoke out on Trayvon Martin, along with the Miami Heat. Remember uh, the I Can't Breathe hoodies back in, I think that was 2014, 2015, somewhere in that vicinity. Um, he spoke out against Daryl Morey when Daryl Morey had the tweets about criticizing anti-government protesters in Hong Kong. This is back in 2019, before the pandemic. It was like in October 2019 when the Lakers played a couple of exhibition games over there. LeBron called Daryl Morey out, saying that the tweets were dangerous from a financial standpoint, from a spiritual standpoint, and like people could have been harmed. Not that we ever thought that China was going to kidnap NBA players for that statement. But I get it. I totally understood LeBron's criticism of Daryl Morey from that standpoint, from the timing of the tweet. Though Daryl Morey was speaking against, you know, he was speaking against God, people that were who were standing up for human rights. But we don't have to get into all that. The point is, if you're LeBron James, you are past the point of pleading ignorance on these type issues. You are a global icon. It's your job. It is your job as the guy who does not want to be just conformed to just being an athlete to understand these issues. Back in 2023, when Hamas did a strike on Gaza and killed thousands of Israelis, here's what LeBron said about LeBron, along with Maverick Carter, released a statement on behalf of the Spring Hill company that they owned back then, that they owned then. They sold it a couple of years ago. Here's what they said. This was a statement released by Maverick Carter, uh, Maverick Carter, and LeBron James, was a part of this statement. Um, the devastation in Israel is tragic and unacceptable. The murder and violence against innocent people by Hamas is terrorism. So you call, and by the way, anybody that cared about humanity would have agreed that was wrong. That Hamas strike on Israel, Israel that killed thousands of people, hundreds of people, that killed hundreds of people, was wrong. Period. Point blank. So genocide is wrong anywhere. Like we don't. There's no. You can't condone any type of genocide. Okay, we're dealing with enough genocide in this country. We've dealt with enough genocide in this country amongst African American people that we had to go through over the course of history. So you're LeBron James. You again, sports, pop culture, politics, it's all intertwined in 2026. All of it. There's no real separation of it. You don't get to sit in your little, you don't get to all of a sudden be this wealthy, rich athlete and be like, well, that's not my thing. I don't do politics. No, 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 no. That's not that's not, especially if you're LeBron James. Other athletes can get away with that because they're not held to that kind of standard. They're not as visible. They're not probably going to be asked questions to that extent. LeBron James, you're going to be asked a question like that. Once you get to a certain level of fame, once you've already put it out, once you've already spoken out on issues, you're going to be once you've already been critical of people being critical of you. Remember, um, he was criticized and he was told by not Megan Kelly. He was told to shut up and dribble, and he turned that. We wrote. He was told by a Fox reporter, uh, to shut up and dribble. I forgot who was the lady's name. Um, Laura Ingram. He was told in 2018. He's told by Laura Ingram, shut up and dribble, LeBron. And we told Laura Ingram, no, you shut the fuck up. LeBron, he can speak out on anything he wants to. You're not going to silence our athletes, especially our black athletes, on speaking out on issues. You're not going to put our black athletes or athletes who want to speak out in a box. We're not doing that. So we defended LeBron. The culture defended LeBron, and we basically told Laura Ingram to go fuck herself, in a sense. So you can't have it both ways. You can't be the convenient capitalist. You can't speak up or not speak up when it's convenient to you or to your bank account. That's not how it goes. It's not. It's too many serious shit. It's too much serious shit going on in 2026. You have too much influence all over the world, to where I would say it is your job to speak up. It's your job. If you're not knowledgeable about something, it's your job to become knowledgeable about something. You are a fantastic businessman. LeBron is a highly intelligent human being. LeBron is a guy who chooses his words carefully for the most part. But this one he completely missed the boat on this one, and he can and he should go back and absolutely recant this statement and say, look, I don't. I don't. I deem genocide anywhere to be bad, to be horrible against any people, whether it's Palestinians, Israelis, against anyone. I deem genocide is bad. I don't rock with genocide because you come out with a statement like this. What you're saying is you rock with Israel and you rock with genocide against Palestinians. That's what you're saying. Even though that's not your intent, that is exactly what you're saying. And again, you don't get to put yourself in a box. You don't get to put yourself in the box because you don't want the political smoke or you don't want to be a part of those type of conversations. No, 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 no. That when you're LeBron James, I'm sorry, it's just that's just not how it works now in 2026. Because again, you don't want to be put in the you never want to be put in the box when it comes to how you run your businesses with Clutch Sports. Rich Paul not having a agent certification and that stuff. We all rocked with you from that standpoint. Doing things outside the box, we rock with LeBron. LeBron curated Two Chainz album back in 2018. We was like, yo, LeBron, listen, he's just a talented dude. We rock with LeBron. He's thinking outside the box on his doing things, not taking the Adidas money and thinking long term with the shoe contract that he made a brilliant move with. We've been rocking with LeBron for 20 years on his thinking outside the box and doing things different. That's part that has made him successful as a businessman. But for political things, things of this nature, you cannot opt out on. This is no opt out on. You can't opt out on this type of shit. You just can't. Tyreek Hill was released by the Miami Dolphins. Um, and to me, if I'm Tyreek Hill, if I'm the Kansas City Chiefs, it would be a reunion would be just to not do a reunion would be crazy. I think this is a perfect. If you're Tyreek Hill, you made your money, you realize you've been out in the wilderness for the last 3 years. Okay, you realize what life was like without Patrick Mahomes, one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time, the best quarterback in football right now. You had to go with Tua for a couple of years, and you had to learn. You had to learn the hard way. You had to learn the hard way. It was good. It was cool. It was cool. And again, he was traded. He was traded, but he was traded. Let's keep that in mind. I'm not saying he wanted to leave Kansas City, but you have it now. You should have a appreciation for what you for what you didn't have the last 3 years. If you're Kansas City, you can bring Tyreek Hill back. You don't have to pay him a ridiculous amount of money. You can get him on an incentive laden contract. Tyreek Hill, a lot of people are gonna say Tyreek Hill is washed. A lot of people are gonna not consider him a top five, top 10 receiver anymore. It's not like Kansas City can't use a receiver. Not like they can't use a receiver to score some more points. So to me, this is a perfect, perfect opportunity for a reunion with Kansas City and Tyreek Hill. And if I'm Mahomes, I would be reaching out to Tyreek Hill to yes, I would have reached out to him yesterday. Like, look, let's let's get everything out on the table. Let's make this happen. I'm reaching out to Andy Reid and the ownership, the general manager, like look, Brent Beach, let's make this happen, like ASAP. Because I still think Tyreek Hill has some bullets left in the gun. I still think he has. I don't think Tyreek Hill is finished by a long stretch. I don't think he's done. He doesn't have to be a top five receiver to be effective. Tyreek Hill can still be a. I still think Tyreek Hill can stretch the field, and he is still a threat on the football field. We don't need you to get 1,500 yards. No, 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 no. We're going to try to build our offensive line. We're going to try to run the ball more. We don't need you to put up those type of numbers anymore. We just need you to be a threat to help us. Help us to where teams don't go eight in the box, or to have Rashid Rice is not number one. We understand that. Kelsey either will retire or next year will be his last year, and he's not the same player that he once was. Even though had a very good year this past year, he had a nice year, but he's still not what he once was. So I think this would be a perfect reunion for Kansas City and Tyreek Hill to get back together in the 2026 season. That's going to wrap it up for this latest edition of the Real Deal podcast. Um, Again, stay tuned for those special podcasts on Tupac Shakur and All Eyes on Me, and also the late and great Jesse Jackson. I will see you next time. So long.